Hello everyone, I'm Justin, and for today's video, we are doing slavery. You know, sometimes isekai animes try to show the Japanese man as the pinnacle of righteousness. They are here to save people from their barbaric ways. When they take over a slave, they are only doing it to protect them from the savages that are the people of the world. And then, you have slave harem in the Labyrinth of another world, where the main guy just goes like, yes, I want a slave for sex. That is right, guys. For today's video, we'll be looking at slave harem in the Labyrinth of another world. Cultured anime that aired in summer of 2022, and can be considered the pioneer in cultured slave isekai animes. But before we begin, here is a fair warning that there will be major spoilers ahead for what happens in the anime, as well as the story moving forward in both the manga and the light novel. Because yes, I have read all the 200 plus web novel chapters available to this date, as well as the manga. So please take that in consideration. And with that said, let's move on with the video. So, what is the story about? Well, the anime starts with our main character Michio, the usual shut-in Japanese guy that has just finished a video game, and now has been transported into another world. Now, the anime doesn't really deep dive into it, so let me just give you a quick run-through of what happened according to the original web novel. After finishing a game, he gets asked as a survey about what would be his perfect game. And by the end, he rolls for points, and after multiple rerolls, he ends up with a maximum amount of points that he can acquire, in order to use them to acquire powers and weapons. That's why he's on the magical sword, but other times he has discount benefits and magical powers. Bro is OP, and can basically change his attributes as he pleases, to obtain different powers which sometimes can be really unique, and I really particularly enjoyed that side of the story. Well, after stealing some initial equipment, he finds himself in a bandit attack, and uses his superior weapons to quickly destroy them. And that's when you realize that this is a more adult story, as blood splats all over the place and people get killed left and right. Long story short, Michio gets some money for saving the village, bangs a village girl, and catches a villager that tried to rob him and turns him into a slave. Wait, did you just say slave? So you're telling me that there are slaves in this world? Yep. And these slaves, are they all male or are there any females? Male, female, fighters, night services, you name it and we got it. Did you just say night services? I certainly did. Would you like to get this fluffy-eared dog girl? Just give me a few minutes to grind. And bought her. You know, it is refreshing to see a main protagonist that sees slavery and immediately turns on his horny brain cells and acts on them. Rather than the typical beta male of, oh, slavery is bad guys, I'm just trying to save the girls and I will never touch them, don't worry. Nah, Michio goes all the way in the first night. Anyway, aside from being one of the horniest animes ever, there is actually plot development, and more importantly, world building. There is a strong class structure and city development going on. But it needs some quick money? How about killing a few bandits and bringing their status cards to the knight's quarters for their bounties? And the most important thing, the dungeons. We are first introduced to the dungeons as a way for adventurers to make some money. And there are many different concepts in this dungeon, like the orbs that absorb monsters' energy, the skill cards or the hidden treasures. But for now, let's focus on the basics. There are multiple dungeons in the world, and each dungeon has a different set of monsters that appear in different floors and drop valuable items. Stick monsters leave sticks, ship monsters leave wool, and so on. There are also a few rare drops like meat that can be acquired sometimes, and everything can be traded in the Adventurers Guild for money. We also have the darker side of the dungeons, in which we clearly see an optimistic adventurer going into a boss room, only to discover his stuff on the floor when Michio enters next, which clearly means that he unfortunately died in battle, which is a huge contrast to what Michio was doing, as we perceive the dungeon through his eyes as a fun place to kill monsters easily and grind money and levels. There is also the concept of levels and jobs, that for most people it is only a speculation but without any actual proof. That is unless you are Michio, that can analyze everything and even change his and his companions' jobs. Again, another ability that makes him extremely OP. Through trial and error, Michio and his new slave Roxanne acquire new jobs, like getting the monk title from defeating a monster with bare hands, or the herbalist title by picking up herbs. There is also a special race jobs such as Roxanne Beast Warrior or Michio Sex Maniac job. As they progress onto the labyrinth, they earn more money, and Michio, wanting to make a profit with skill cards, decides to get another slave, this time a dwarf, because he likes variety. I mean, to use her as a blacksmith job and fuse skills with equipment. And of course, it is a cute lolly that he bangs immediately.
Yoshi, 我慢の限界だ。もうたまらん。それでは、いただきます。
There is also the subplot of him getting a house and of course getting a big bathtub, because Japanese and bathtubs. And of course getting some sexy time with Roxanne. We do get a lot of world building, but unfortunately, aside from that, the plot doesn't really develop that much. Michio just keeps grinding and making money while having night fun with Roxanne and slowly amasses money to buy more slaves, which at the end of the anime only amounts to 2 slaves. But of course, if you count the other 3 girls at the end, then we get 5, which leads me to my next point. It is clear that the anime was meant to promote the light novel, because that last few minutes of the anime were a clear tell that we are not getting a second season. Bro literally did a Promised Neverland and speedran the rest of the plot, telling us which new girls will be added to the harem and what happens next in the story. Which is understandable, because, to be honest, I was impressed that we even got an adaptation to begin with. When an anime heavily relies on straight-up sex scenes and fan service, it is not common to get an adaptation. But I am happy to see people got past that and look at the actual plot while of course still enjoying the fan service. Later on, as you can see, the story develops further. They get a cat girl that helps as an assassin, a dragonute that serves as a vanguard, and a fallen aristocrat elf girl that serves as a mage. And of course he has sex with all of them except with the elf girl, I think. Plot-wise, this isn't the strongest story, but you have to give it to the author for being so dedicated to the world building and dungeon systems, which, I believe, are one of the best depictions of dungeons in fantasy. And while the anime doesn't delve too deep into that, you can keep reading the manga that is still being updated to this date, or the actual light novel that started in 2012 and it's still ongoing with 13 volumes in its belt. If you're looking for a good depiction of fantasy, world building, and want to mix it with something horny, give Slave Harem Labyrinth in Another World a try. I'm sure you will enjoy it for multiple reasons. And with that said, we come to the conclusion of this video. What do you guys thought of this anime? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, see you guys next time.